Good morning, Terps. For all in range of my voice, it's appropriate that I inform you that this webinar will now be recorded. This recording will be available for all registered participants after our program. In addition, please be sure to post any questions that you may have for our panelists in the chat feature. We'll be sure to try and answer any questions that arrive at our question and answer portion of the program. Now, before we get started with I would like to acknowledge the civil rights and icon and legend, John Lewis, as he is being laid to rest today. Welcome and thank you for joining us. My name is Isaac Moore, Associate Director of Development for the Division of Student Affairs. My primary responsibility here at the University of Maryland is working with our wonderful Greek alumni on various initiatives that connect alumni with resources to students without them. Last year, as we approached the fall, we were engaged by several members of the Divine Nine Greek alumni groups that were interested in bolstering their 50th year anniversary efforts with a philanthropic revenue strategy. Subsequent conversations led us to believe that we were in a position to not only provide that level of partnership to our alumni, but also to provide comprehensive guidance around financial and estate planning through a forum such as this. On July 1st, we entered into an exciting new era with President Dr. Darryl Pines. As we move forward as a university, it shall remain our duty to connect and engage our illustrious alumni in consistent and creative ways. Without you, there is no us. So without further delay, I'd like to introduce our panelist and my co-moderator. First is Keith Scroggins. Keith is a member of Class of '79. Keith, can you say hi to our audience?
Hello, everyone. I'm glad to be with you today.
So Keith is now retired, and he is a former Chief Operating Officer for the Baltimore City Public School System. He is also a member of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. Next is Karen Pope Onwukwe. Karen, can you say hi to our audience?
Good afternoon, and thanks for coming to our seminar.
Thanks, Karen. Karen is the owner and principal of the law office of Karen Pope Onwukwe, LLC. She is also a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. Next is Chris Pirtle. Chris is a member of the class of 1989. Chris, can you say hi to our audience?
Good day, everybody. Thank you for joining us this afternoon.
Thanks, Chris. Chris is the managing director of Peak Financial Wealth Management and is a member of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. Next is Cheryl Harrison. Cheryl, can you say hello to our audience?
Good afternoon, everyone. Glad to be with you today.
Thank you, Cheryl. Cheryl is Senior Associate Athletics Director and Executive Director of the Terrapin Club for Maryland Athletics. Cheryl is also a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. Last but not least, we have Tiffany Purvis. Tiffany, can you say hello to our wonderful audience?
Hello, everyone. I'm happy to be here with you today.
Thanks, Tiffany. Tiffany is Director of Gift Planning at the University of Maryland and is a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. So now, we'd like to get to know our audience just a little bit more. And so we'll sort of take a litmus test via poll. So our first poll question that we'd love for you to answer is, do you have an existing estate plan? Yes, no, or unsure? And we'll take about 30 seconds here for audience members to vote. All right, so we have some results here. So it looks like about 41% of the audience participants said yes, they have an existing estate plan. 47% said no, and there's another 12% that is unsure. So that's interesting. As we will get into the program, our wonderful panelists will be able to highlight some more ideas around these particular topics. I'll turn it over to my co-moderator, Keith.
Okay, our first question is going to be both for Karen and Tiffany, and Karen will begin responding to the question. So for Karen and Tiffany, can you tell us about estate planning and what encompasses a good estate plan?
Well, I'll tackle that first. I believe that a good estate plan includes not just planning for when you die, but planning for while you're alive. I'm an elder law attorney, and I tell people, I help people plan for aging, disability, and wealth transfer. And in the world that we live in nowadays, there can be catastrophic events that occur. And so a good estate plan would have to have documents that will help you while you're living. While you're living, you may need surrogate decision makers. The first document that you may want to consider would be for medical and financial planning. Then, of course, you're going to have documents that can help you when you die, estate planning documents. And then there's some things that you need to think about for after you die. Once you die, there's a probate process. If we could go to the next slide. While you're alive, if you have, this morning they announced that Herman Cain died from the COVID-19. Many people now are they're having catastrophic medical events occur, and you need sometimes someone who can speak for you. An advanced medical directive is the document that you can create that will name a surrogate that can speak on your behalf, can talk to the doctors if you don't have the capacity. That document can also have a living will component, which would allow for you to say, if you're at end of life, how would you want to be on life support, or would you want a feeding tube, things of that nature. If you don't have those documents in place, the only alternative is to go to court and get a guardian of your person appointed. Anyone over the age of 18 is an adult, and no one else can make healthcare decisions for you or decline treatment for you unless you have these documents in place. We'll go to the next slide, please. I always tell people, money, money, money. When you get sick or die, but if you get sick, if you get very sick, a lot of people become very interested in your money. In order for you to make sure that someone has the ability to handle your finances, you need what's called a general durable power of attorney. That document will name someone, and both of the documents that I talked about, the advanced medical directive and the general durable power of attorney, I encourage people to name one person to be your primary agent, but have a backup in case something happens to that person. The general durable power of attorney gives that person the ability to work with your bank or with your insurance company to pay your bills or whatever. Now, if you have government benefits, you may only need a representative payee. That person, a lot of people handle Social Security checks for their mom or their dad. You actually should be their representative payee. You register with the federal government, and that requires you to do an annual report on how you're spending the money. If you don't have either of those documents, if you're not a representative payee or you don't have a general durable power of attorney, then you would have to go to court and get a guardian of property. I tell people the difference between those. You can get a guardian of property or a guardian of person, go to court. It may cost you from $3,000 or up. To get a general durable power of attorney or an advanced medical directive, you can get them free at some places, or you may pay maybe $200. That's a huge cost benefit. if you get the documents done instead of waiting for a crisis and having to run to court. We'll go to the next slide, please. Most people, the only thing they think about when they hear estate planning is last will and testament. But the two documents I just talked about should be a part of a complete estate plan. Most people are familiar with a last will and testament. That's where you say, this is all my stuff, and I want it to be, this is what I want to happen to it. Many times we have people who they will want to write their will. In Maryland, you can't write a will. We don't have, they're called holographic wills. They're not recognized in the state of Maryland. Or some people will have an old will and they'll bring it into me and they've written on it. That means that we have to go to court because you can't change a will that you've signed and written by writing on it. You know, they've gotten mad with somebody, crossed their names out or whatever. Can't do that. You have to do a codicil to the will once you've created it. Your will should have, in Maryland we call it the personal representative. In other states they call it an executor. That's the person who's going to handle everything after you die. And they will say, they will do whatever it says in the will. I tell people, we have to start talking about these things. I had a lady who, her husband died, and after he died, she called me in a panic. She didn't know what to do. She had no idea. She wound up, we found out that he worked as a Safeway warehouseman all his life. He had a brokerage account with $2 million in it. She had no clue. But she didn't know anything about it. There are people who died, their children don't even know if they have a will or not. You have to start talking about these things because you know what? Everybody's gonna die. Now, the next thing I have listed here is the special needs trust. Many of us have people in our family that may be, been born with a disability. They may have a mental disability, a physical disability. They may have an alcohol problem. They may have a drug problem. They may just be trifling. But you don't want to leave money outright to people that can't handle it. So we have in Maryland what we call special needs trust. And you can create a special needs trust to make sure that someone who has exactly that special needs can have someone that can manage their property. So instead of giving them money outright, you may need someone who's going to be able to pay their mortgage or pay their rent or not, but you're not going to give them money directly. Now, the other two documents that I want to talk about are revocable trust or irrevocable trust. Both of these documents are very important to an estate plan. If you create a revocable trust while you're alive, that means that trust will be able, you will be able to be the trustee of the trust. You can put all your property in it. It can help you to avoid probate if you put everything in the trust before you die. I also like to talk about the irrevocable trust when we talk about the revocable trust and the difference between an irrevocable trust is really, it's a trust that you can't change. A revocable trust, you can change it while you're alive. Now, an irrevocable trust, if I'm talking to you, we're really looking at someone who has a great deal of wealth and we may be subject to federal estate tax. It's dealing with a lot with your tax issues. You cannot change an irrevocable trust once it's created. Now, under the tax laws, you're going to have like $5 million in order to be subject to federal estate tax. Most people are going to use a revocable trust. They can put their house and their car, all of the assets that they have, their bank account or whatever, into that trust. When they die, the trust becomes irrevocable. It can't be changed. But if you have a great deal, especially a great deal of liquid assets, an irrevocable trust can help you. I'll give you an example. I had a guy who, he won the lottery, $9 million cash. And he had to figure out what to do with that money. Well, of course, he had to give a lot of that up for taxes when he received it. But we had to plan for when he died, because there was going to be a possible estate tax. So we were able to purchase an irrevocable trust, get an irrevocable trust, and the trust purchased a life insurance policy on him. They'll talk more about that kind of planning in the financial planning part. But one of the things I want you to understand is the woman I told you about with her husband who died and had $1 million, or this man who won the $9 million in the lottery, at some point, they had to work with CPAs, financial planners, and attorneys so that they did not leave money on the table. Now, if you don't want to leave money on the table, you don't want to be in this last category I have here, which is intestate. No will, no plan, nothing, just dead. And then people have to sort through what you have. Please, I think Nike has a thing that says, can we have, what is it, just do it? That's what you need to do about estate planning, just do it. Let's go to our next slide. When you die, I wanted to mention before I close out here, deeds. Many people don't understand the importance of a deed. I tell people a deed, if you play cards, a deed is like a trump card. You can put something in your will, but if you've changed and put something in a deed, it can trump that. When you die, everyone would go to the Office of the Register of Wills and the Clerk of the Orphans Court to probate their estate. I think that I'll close up now and then we'll come back for questions later.
Okay. Tiffany, I know you have a story you wanted to share. Could you briefly talk to us about your story, please?
Sure. So it's kind of similar to what Karen just mentioned. I mean, just the idea of making sure that you speak to your family and you talk to your financial advisors, because I was in the same situation when I was working at a wills clinic, and we had a family that came in and with their mother, the mother was getting ready to go into assisted living. And so the father had passed away maybe about 10 years prior, didn't have a will. And the father was a retired janitor, had worked at Exxon all of his life. All employees at Exxon have stock options. The father was kind of taking his statements and shoving it into a drawer. Little did they know, in looking at the actual statements, the father had amassed over $1 million during his time at Exxon and while he was retired. Unfortunately, since he had passed away almost like I said, almost 10 years ago, we couldn't probate the will because the statute had passed to be able to do so, and they couldn't lay claim to the money. So if you could just imagine, when we talk about generational wealth and passing that kind of wealth with our families, it's just important to have those conversations. It's important to talk to people like Karen to kind of suss out what you need to know and what assets you have, and just to make sure that those things are protected. So I just kind of wanted to echo her point about the importance of having a plan in place and making sure to talk to the necessary people and to have discussions with your family. I just think that's really important.
Thank you for that wonderful elaboration. Now we'll turn it back over to Chris.
Wow, that was wonderful. Thank you, Karen and Tiffany. Over $1 million. Can you imagine leaving that on the table in terms of generational wealth? I mean, that's something that is just extraordinary to hear. And speaking of wealth and of course, financial planning, I guess we'll move into some questions for Chris. Chris, can you tell us about the importance of long-term financial planning?
Yes, Isaac, thank you. Great story, Tiffany and Karen. Thank you for the lead-in. Financial planning is really probably the second most important thing you can do in life outside of being born. When you're born, when you graduate from the fabulous University of Maryland, your next step should be finding a planner, someone who can help you set that roadmap to the future. As you see on the slide here, there are going to be so many curves and detours along the way. A good planner, which he or she doesn't have to be expensive, can help you look at what you don't see. They can help you put together your initial 401k deductions, your 403b deductions. That first job you have, how much should you allocate to the retirement plan? That planner can help you when you get married, when you have your first child. What do you do? Life insurance, the most important thing you can do when you have that child. Disability insurance, something we don't think about, but during this current COVID situation, many folks are developing COVID and they're recovering. Unfortunately, we're at 150,000 plus unexpected deaths. So those are folks who we hope had life insurance in place. But the real purpose of planning, putting together a plan, is if you don't have a plan, you don't know where you're going. You need to have some type of roadmap to help get you down the road. A good planner will ask questions. A lot of the questions that Karen will ask during your estate plan, those are the same questions we're going to ask. In fact, most planners work hand in hand with a good estate planning attorney, because as a planner, we're the quarterbacks of the plan. We're the ones who help ask those questions, provide guidance, provide suggestions. We'll bring you to Karen. Karen will ask those questions to help develop where do you want your assets to go to when you do die. You know, sooner or later, we all will pass. Along the way, how can you accumulate assets? Your 401k, your 403b. Investing on your own. You know, many times when I meet with young graduates, I always suggest you're just out of school. Let's look at a short-term account. Let's look at a long-term account. Roth IRAs. You're just out of school. Your income is limited right now. You qualify for a Roth IRA. Roth IRAs are the best vehicles since sliced bread. You want to get a Roth IRA if you're a new graduate or a recent graduate. Then as you're developing and growing, you're married, you have a family, your assets are growing, then we start looking at other wealth management tools. Keith retired. He mentioned in our prep meeting, he had 4 annuities. The only financial vehicle in the world that can provide you guaranteed income for life is an annuity. Annuities have a bad name in some arenas, but annuities serve a purpose. Annuities allow you to sleep at night, waking up, knowing that you have a check coming once a month. Nothing else can provide that. Your 401k, down the road, your 401k is going to have to be converted, a portion of it, to a guaranteed income stream. So there's a lot of vehicles which will play a role in your planning, and an advisor can help you determine which ones will best meet your needs. That's the role of a good advisor as you move on in life. One other thing I want to mention, you know, for the Divine Nine, great opportunities to leave enhanced gifts to your chapter. We recently did a plan for a chapter of Omega Psi Phi where one of the lines, the 89 line from Fort Valley State, they're going to leave a gift of almost $300,000 to the school in the name of the chapter. A lot of great ways of making that happen. And that's something we'll discuss somewhere in another conference. Isaac?
Thanks, Chris. That was great. We're actually going to transition over to Tiffany, and I'll let Keith do that. I do see some questions starting to populate in the chat, but I just want to remind people, if you have questions, feel free to pose them in the chat as soon as we get done. As soon as we get to the question and answer portion of our program, we will start to answer those questions, and I see some nice ones coming through. But for right now, we'll turn it over to Keith and Tiffany.
Okay. Tiffany, as Isaac mentioned earlier, many of our sororities and fraternities have 50-year anniversaries coming up. Some of us that may be interested in ways to support our chapter scholarships with charitable gifts. Can you tell us a bit more about what kind of options we may have in terms of tax benefits, or maybe even in regards to ways that one may generate income through charitable giving?
Sure. So we talked a little bit about estate planning with Karen, and we talked a little bit about financial planning with Chris, and how we kind of wrap up the whole plan is to incorporate philanthropic planning if that's something that's of interest to you. And we can look at what you can do now and what you can do later that might be beneficial to your overall short and long-term planning goals. So first, let's look at charitable giving during your lifetime. While cash is the most common way to make a charitable donation, other assets may provide greater tax benefits or be more beneficial. So let's look at appreciated securities. It has a dual benefit. You receive the fair market value of the securities donated. You pay no capital gains tax on the appreciation of the asset. Next is personal tangible property. You might have something valuable that's sitting around the house. It could be a vehicle that you're ready to get rid of because you're getting ready to purchase a new vehicle. What are you doing with the old vehicle? It could be artwork. It could be antiques. It could be memorabilia, such as a collection. James Brown's cape. You could have a pair of Princess high heel shoes there somewhere. You never know what might be in the drawer. Next might be real estate. That could be an option for some people. You can give outright, such as a plot of land or a home, a farm, a vacation home. You receive an upfront tax savings during your lifetime, and for the fair market value of the home that you donate. And if you have children that might live far, or say if they're not planning to come back home and you have a family home, or maybe if you don't have anyone that you might want to leave it to, there's a way that you can donate your home to charity during your lifetime, live in the home for your life, and after your lifetime, the charity will take possession of the home as a gift. This type of gift can provide tax savings now and possible estate savings later. Next is the traditional IRA rollover for donors aged 70 and a half and above. You can make a direct gift from your IRA to a charity of your choice up to $100,000 per year. You do not have to pay income taxes on this money, and it may satisfy your required minimum distribution beginning at age 72. Lastly, for lifetime giving, we can look at donor advised funds, or DAFs as we call it in the industry. DAFs are beneficial because it's a place to where you can park your money and decide where you want to give at a later date, but you also receive an upfront tax deduction. This may be beneficial if you have a taxable event, such as stocks that must be liquidated quickly, or perhaps you have a sale of a business. For any of my, starter companies, if you have an IPO coming up, DAFs are a really great place to help in your charitable planning and your charitable giving. So next, I would like to move to charitable giving while generating income. You can give a gift of cash or appreciated securities, and in return, you or a loved one can receive payments for life or possibly for a term of years. So first, I want to discuss the charitable gift annuity, which is akin to the commercial annuity that Chris was mentioning earlier, except with a charitable gift annuity, except here it is part gift and it's part annuity. You receive fixed payments for life, and after your lifetime, the charity receives the remaining assets to be used for charitable purposes. But in the meantime, you receive a charitable deduction upfront, and part of the annuity you receive during your life is tax-free for a certain period of time. Additionally, charitable gift annuities are great ways to supplement retirement income or prepare for retirement income. I have about another 30 years to go before I retire. I am definitely thinking about, looking at my retirement and what that looks like, because Social Security may not be around when I get ready to retire. So it's something to start thinking about early on in your career. And if you are financially taking care of a loved one, or perhaps you would like to, a charitable gift annuity is a great way to do so. And they don't cost you anything to set up. You will call someone like me, a charitable gift planner, and I will kind of help you, assist you with the process of setting that up. Another quick story of how charitable gift annuities can be beneficial is I had a donor call me one day, and she wanted to set up an annuity for her mother. The reason is she lived in California, her mother lived in New York, and her mom couldn't afford the plane tickets to be flying back and forth from California to New York. So the daughter offered to pay for these plane tickets, but her mom would not accept her money. So the daughter called us and said, I want to set up a charitable gift annuity for my mom. I really want her to be able to fly out and see the kids. So we set one up for the mother, and she had enough each year to be able to buy the plane ticket back and forth to see her grandkids. And she was excited about the annuity because she was like, well, at least it's going to charity. At least I know it's going to a good cause. So she was happy to accept that money. Next is the charitable remainder trust, which is also a gift that can provide income for you or a loved one. But I want to highlight the differences from a charitable gift annuity. So with the charitable trust, you can have a fixed or variable payments, and it can be for a lifetime or for a term of years. It provides an upfront charitable deduction and could possibly provide tax savings. An attorney, like Karen, is needed to establish a trust, and you want to make sure that you have someone who has set up charitable trust before. Because the trust, because it costs money to actually set up a trust and to manage the assets within it, it is worth noting that the threshold to establish a charitable remainder trust is much higher than that of a gift annuity. So lastly, I want to mention legacy charitable giving. These revocable gifts are committed now, but are payable after your lifetime. A legacy gift will allow you to make a larger contribution than you thought possible during your life. The most popular, and what we hear most of all, of course, is a bequest through a will or living trust. You heard Karen kind of talk about earlier the difference between a will and living trust, and we always recommend that you talk to your attorney about which situation might be best for you, which vehicle might be best for you. So a bequest can be specific, such as, I want to leave $25,000 in my will. It can be a percentage of your residual estate, meaning, oh, I want to leave 10% of what's remaining in my estate. It could be a non-cash asset, such as those high heel boots from Prince, or real estate, or artwork. And so bequests can be modified at any time. Karen was mentioning how it can be revocable, which means that it can be changed during your lifetime depending on your life circumstances, which means that it's flexible for you. We know with estate plans, as you go through life, they kind of ebb and flow, and you want to have something that's flexible for you. And they are easy to set up with the help of an attorney. You can feel free to contact a gift planning office, or your attorney can contact us to get any information you need to establish a gift through your will. That's what we're here for. And lastly, I want to talk about the beneficiary designation form, which is a really simple way to make a gift. You simply contact the company that is holding your account to request the beneficiary form for you to complete. You can name a charity on your retirement accounts, IRA accounts, life insurance policies, like Chris mentioned earlier, brokerage or bank accounts, CDs, just to name a few. If you leave some of these assets in your estate, they could be subject to income taxes, as well as possible estate taxes. When Karen was talking about, you have an exemption, so you have to be mindful about how large your estate is. Charities receive a lot of this money tax-free. So I would recommend always talking with your attorney or advisor about the best gift strategies to use to distribute your assets to families, to work with alums and friends to create these creative gift strategies and ways to make charitable gifts that you can discuss with your advisors, like Karen and like Chris. Please always feel free to reach out to our office. That's what we're here for. Our service is free, so feel free to use this anytime, and you can take these examples that we give you, these ideas, these solutions, you can take them back and talk to your advisors and figure out how you can incorporate them into your overall giving plan. So we're here and we're happy to help. So thank you.
Thank you, Tiffany.
Sure.
The next question is for Cheryl. Hello, Cheryl. Okay. Yeah.
If I unmute it, yes. Hi, Keith.
Okay. All right, Tiffany touched on this a bit, but can you expand a bit more about the idea of legacy giving? Can you share a little bit about your experience as a legacy donor, what it means, and what calls you to give in such a way?
Sure, Keith. You know, when I started working at the University of Maryland back in 1996, I decided to start donating to the Terrapin Club at the time. That's what I was asking other people to support. So I felt it important that I support that as well. Can't ask people to give to what you don't believe in enough to give your own money to. So, you know, I grew up as a Maryland athletics fan, particularly Maryland basketball fan. So giving to the Terrapin Club was easy for me. Not only was I asking other people to do so, but I was able to see the beneficiaries of my donation up close and personal, seeing the student athletes that were able to matriculate at the University of Maryland because of the support they were receiving from donations that were made to the Terrapin Club. And then in the early 2000s, we established a new program on campus called the Incentive Awards Program, which provides full scholarships, room and board included, to underrepresented youth to matriculate at Maryland. And my high school in Baltimore was one of those schools where kids were coming to Maryland through the IAP program. So that was of great interest to me. So I started as a donor to that program. And then I'd say about 7 years ago, I was working in the gift planning office and just started thinking about how much satisfaction I got from giving to those programs, and started thinking about how I could help continue my support of those programs even after my death. So after a conversation with my family, when I talked about my interest in supporting those programs long term, I decided to include the Terrapin Club and the Incentive Awards programs with a gift in my will, so that after I die, funds will come from my estate to establish 2 endowments through the University of Maryland College Park Foundation, one to support a student athlete scholarship and one to support an IAP scholarship, hopefully to a student from Western High School in Baltimore. But it was important to me to know that I can continue my support of those programs even after I'm gone, and no longer to make annual gifts to it. But the endowment will make a spendable income, will provide spendable income to those programs, hopefully in perpetuity. So it was important to me to be able to have that legacy at the University of Maryland, someplace that I care about, and especially 2 programs that I particularly care about.
Thank you. I guess we'll turn it back over to Isaac.
And Isaac, I just want to jump in real quick and just mention, again, what Chris said. From personal experience, I established a Roth IRA when I was 21, right when I was in college, so I could start donating. I think it's a great idea. A lot of times you can go to credit unions. They don't tend to ask you for too much. Like, for instance, my IRA, I could start off with $25. You know, that's very little, you know, to be able, especially at that age, to kind of start thinking about my retirement. But I thought it was very important for me to at least have something set up. And the beauty of a Roth IRA is that that money that you put in now is tax-free later, right? Because it's after-tax money. So I think it's a great opportunity, especially for young people, to make sure that they have something and really start thinking about, you know, retirement and having that cushion there. So I just wanted to mention that it doesn't cost a whole lot to start it, and just to kind of look at your banking and financial institutions to see one that you can afford to start now.
I see Chris has unmuted himself. It seems that he has something to say. We'll let the financial expert weigh in as well.
Yeah, I was just gonna thank Tiffany for that endorsement. You know, a Roth IRA as well as a regular investment account, when you start early, $25 a month, $50 a month, it'll add up over time. And time is your greatest friend. When you start young, or even mid-career, mid-life, the most important thing is getting started. Start with that 401k, start with that qualified plan you have at work. Take advantage of what they're providing you. Participate. It's amazing how many folks we see who don't participate. Make sure you're getting at least a match. At a minimum, you want to get what they're matching. Then as your budget allows, you can contribute more. But definitely, it's never too late to start. The first step is picking up the phone, calling a planner, sitting down, answering the questions.
That's great insight. I mean, you know, we all know, I think most of the folks that are on this webinar understand that retirement planning is something that is crucial to your future, and thriving during that period really relies on what kinds of investments that you make in yourself today. And now that, you know, we're on this topic, maybe we can talk to one of our retirees, and Keith. Keith, you are now living in retirement bliss. You're living comfortably. And so maybe, can you tell us a little bit about what gave you the confidence to retire? I know we talked about this privately, but can you share with our audience, you know, if there was anything special that you did to prepare for this moment?
Well, I would say, I guess I was around close to 40 years of age, and at that point in my life, I was basically living for the moment, making sure I had a new car, making sure that I was traveling and partying and so forth. But I went to a retirement seminar, and it opened my eyes to the fact that I needed to plan for the future, meaning I had to sacrifice a portion of my salary and invest in my future. And I kind of developed and realized that I had to enjoy today, but live for tomorrow. So my career started to really take off, and I was able to put more and more money. Every time I got a raise, I put money away for retirement. Fortunately, I retired from the city after 25 years, and then went to work for substantially more money for the state in the school system. And I was able to get a couple of annuities from that money. And then the money I was saving and money I was putting on the side in cash to get even more annuities to make my life comfortable. You really have to think about how much are you going to have, what kind of retirement you have when you stop working. If you work for the public sector or the private sector, I'm sure they offer courses that will regarding retirement seminars, and everybody as early as possible, I think, should take advantage of it, because I know it helped me, and I know it'll help other individuals. And you have to know that after you retire, there will be additional costs, and in particular, Medicare Part B and Part D. Not only are you going to pay per month for that Medicare cost, but you're going to have to, if you earn a lot of money, you have to pay more than someone who doesn't earn a lot of money. And so you're paying a significant amount each month for your Medicare, for your going to see the doctor or minor emergencies. And Part D is prescription. You're going to have to pay the prescription amount. Plus, there are deductibles. And there are a lot of things you may not know. I advise everyone, read about Medicare, what those costs will be. Think about how much you're going to have when you retire, because once you retire, that's a set amount unless you're able to find another job, add on to it. But it really will impact you. And, you know, fortunately, I was able to do that. And that's why I'm comfortable. I'm not rich, but I'm comfortable.
Thanks, Keith. So there's some questions coming through in the chat about financial planners. Chris, question for you. In terms of identifying a financial planner that's right, you know, what do you suggest that someone look for in terms of criteria when seeking a particular financial planner?
Great question. If I heard correctly, you said what should someone look for in terms of criteria? First thing I would suggest is you look for someone who is experienced, someone who is unbiased. You want someone who's going to ask questions. A lot of, you know, one thing you start with is you look for a certified financial planner. Normally a certified financial planner, they've been through the coursework. they passed a test in order to be a CFP. That's the first sort of check you might want to look for. But more importantly, you want to look for someone who you can work with, someone you're compatible with. You don't want a planner who you're avoiding their calls. You want a planner who's going to sit down and ask questions, ask you the tough questions about what you want for tomorrow. So you want someone who's unbiased, someone who's not going to try to sell you a lot of products. You want a planner who's going to help put together a blueprint. So CFP, they don't necessarily have to be a CFP, but someone who has been through some training and they know they have experience. That's what I would say you want to look for in a planner.
It's good insight. Question for Karen. So if you're single and not, maybe Tiffany and Karen, but Karen, I'm directing it towards you. If you're single and not married with children, why should I do an estate plan? I mean,
if you're single and you're not married and you have assets that have to be distributed upon your death, in most states, if you don't have an estate plan, it has to go according to the estate law in your jurisdiction. The problem is that if you, I'll give you an example. I had a client. She died, no estate plan. She had no children. Her parents were very elderly, were the beneficiaries of everything in her estate. And she had a very complicated estate. That put a huge burden on them to try and they were living in the South. She was living here in Prince George's County, Maryland. You may, if you have graduated from the University of Maryland, College Park, you probably have a career, you've accumulated assets, you have, I believe, an obligation to determine what you're going to do. You can take your will, your estate plan, and bless people after you die. You can leave money to your university, to your church, to a museum that you support. You can create a scholarship. There are lots of things. You can be very creative about what you want to do with the assets. If you're driving around in a BMW, a Mercedes Benz, when you die, what's going to happen to that? All of those assets that you have, all of that wonderful stuff in your house, it's got to be liquidated. And then what happens is that you have to determine who gets it. Many times people say, well, I don't care because I won't be here. I think that we have we've lived long enough where we are now in a different position. If you were blessed to graduate from a major university, you need to look at what you can do. And I think John Lewis's life is an example of that. What can you do to move things forward for the next generation? And one of the things I believe for the African American community is that philanthropy, which means the love of mankind, that has to be where we're going now. That's our future. Economic understanding and how we can we can do the best with what we've been given. So that's what I would say. If you're single, don't have any kids, nothing hindering you, you can make a huge difference.
If I could just add one thing, Isaac, I neglected to say that I did speak to a good friend of mine who's an attorney who helped set up an estate plan for me. He's also a member of Phi Beta Sigma. And I have a cousin who's a financial advisor who also helped me put a plan together for retirement. So that those things also helped me decide when I retired that it was good enough.
You got to have those things. Karen, one thing that you said that is really hitting home is, what can you do to move things forward for the next generation? That is so important. I think, in terms of the work that many of us do, we're always thinking about that, especially when someone's interested in doing something like, creating an estate plan or even, creating a scholarship fund. So, Tiffany, I'd like to just pivot to you for a second because we have a question in the chat. And one of the questions is, I'd like to start, the person's asking, I'd like to start a scholarship fund for students. Can I do this through a charitable gift annuity? Who do I need to talk to about this? It's a great question. Probably those people are on this call. But Tiffany, can you give that an answer?
Sure. So first, thank you. Thank you for wanting, to help the next generation. And the answer is yes, you can establish a scholarship with the charitable gift annuity. It is a great way to take care of your own financial security while also giving back to your charity. So it is possible. You would contact the gift planning office at your charity. That's the place I work. So I'm a gift planning officer. So I would speak to you, and then depending on where you would want your scholarship to be designated, then we would also bring in someone to assist there as well. But it is possible. It provides great tax benefits. It gives you money for a lifetime. And then you also know that you're, securing a student's future. And I think that's the most important benefit that you get from it, is that you're helping that next generation. And we all know the struggle with student debt and all of that. So scholarships are always needed and they're always appreciated. So you would just get in contact with your gift planning office and we'd be happy to assist you.
Thanks, Tiffany. And you and I mean, we do a lot of work together to help these students at the University of Maryland, in particular for the ones that are in fraternities and sororities. And I think that's really great that you have provided yourself as a available tool to be able to get this done. So that's really, really great. I guess I'm going to ask another question to.
I have a quick question, Isaac, that I just kind of want to present to Karen and possibly Chris. Some things that we sometimes leave out is about long-term health care planning. Can either one of you kind of speak to the long-term health care planning? I know Keith mentioned it about, Medicaid and all of that. And I think we kind of forget that part. We set up an estate plan. We might have an advance directive, but we don't plan for if, God forbid, I fall or I can't work or I have to go on disability, what does that look like?
Karen, let me say just a couple words real quick. Long-term care is probably one of the greatest threats to a successful retirement. Keith mentioned healthcare costs. If you live long enough, what we're finding is a lot of folks are filing claims for long-term care. In fact, the long-term care industry has went from 100 companies 10 years ago to literally there are 3 companies today that issue true long-term care policies. The reason for that is they're being used. Dementia, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, we still don't know where these diseases come from. And they are ravaging our seniors. COVID is here today, but before COVID, there was dementia, Parkinson's, and Alzheimer's. Long-term care, when you're 55 plus, is something you should be looking at. The state of Maryland used to have a group plan. Many large employers do have group plans. If it's offered and still available, it's definitely one of the most important things you can do. It will allow you to bring nursing care into your home, or it'll help you pay for nursing care. But average nursing care is on average about $5,000 to $6,000 a month. And that can definitely blow a budget. So thank you, Tiffany, for mentioning that. Karen?
I'm an elder law attorney because I do have a holistic approach to estate planning because disability really, and within the African American community, diseases such as high blood pressure and having, strokes and things of that nature can really cause a financial burden. And people have to understand that you can plan for it, but you have to plan in advance. If you've got a family member, there's a history of dementia in your family or heart attacks or things of that nature, you may want to consider talking about long-term care. There's planning. You can do what we call life estate deeds. People are always afraid of losing their house. And a life estate deed, you say, I want to live in my house for the rest of my life, and when I die, I want it to go to whoever. That's one technique that we use in Maryland to plan to protect your home in case you need long-term care. If you've been a veteran or you have a surviving spouse, you can qualify for aid and attendance, which can help you to pay for care. It is expensive to have someone take care of you when you cannot take care of yourself. And if you believe, I tell people you have to plan that you're going to live and be, jumping out of planes when you're 80 and 90 years old. That's what everybody wants to think. But you also have to believe that you could have a catastrophic event and not be able to recover from it. You could have a catastrophic event and recover fully. But if you don't recover from it, you have to have a plan for each of those options. And that's what a good estate plan should be able to do, should cover all your bases.
Okay.
And a good financial plan will also cover those bases.
So one last question we have here. We got about 2 minutes before we wrap up, but the last question is, what are the benefits of setting up a foundation versus a trust and other estate vehicles? I guess particularly for the ones who are beneficiaries.
So I would say that's more of a loaded question, but in this sense, foundations are quite different from trust. And I know Karen can kind of, help me with this. And I think it kind of depends on what you're trying to establish as far as, is it a philanthropic trust? Is it, is it a family foundation and things of that nature? So Karen, I'll have you hop in as well, because it kind of depends on which direction you want to go there. So
I'll give you an example. I had a lady who had a great deal of wealth here in the county, and she owned a lot of property, and some of it was historic in nature, African-American property. And so we created a foundation, and that foundation was able to, normally a foundation gives money out. Mm-hmm. And what her foundation was able to do, they created a foundation. They had a lot of programs for the community. The foundation was able to donate money to a local HBCU, and that was an example of what a foundation can do. And you can have a family foundation. Theirs was a family foundation. A trust, on the other hand, would be a document where it's a private document. And what you're doing is you are marshaling your assets, and you can give them, as we talked, there are lots of things you can do with the trust. You can give it to beneficiaries, not only just your family members, but you can also benefit institutions like the University of Maryland. You can have your church, you can have your sorority. There are all kinds of things that you can do with the trust. But what I tell people when I first sit down with them is, I want to know what your goals are. What do you want to do? And once you decide what you want to do, we craft a plan to make that happen. So you have to decide, I want to leave money. And I tell people, I'm not going to go into a long dissertation about what is the desire of your heart, but what you want to do in your heart, that's what you can do when you die, so that when people are sitting at your funeral, they can be saying hallelujah instead of how are we going to pay for this funeral.
I like that one.
Oh man, well, we actually don't have any more time. We want to be respectful of everyone who's attended, but this was such a wonderful conversation. But unfortunately, we have to end here. So I just want to thank everyone, from the bottom of my heart, our distinguished panelists, our co-moderator, our attendees. But last but not least, I want to thank our team behind the scenes that really helped us with the strategy and execution. I'd like to thank, first and foremost, Vicki Ismail, Assistant Senior Director of Gift Planning, who is also a member of Delta Sigma Theta, Beth Winson, Manager of External Relations in the Office of Gift Planning, Erica Garnett, with the UMD Alumni Association, Manager of Alumni Volunteer Programs, Nathan Grine, our graduate student intern for Alumni Engagement and Outreach. And in addition, I'd like to invite you to join us for two very special programs coming up that are sure to be amazing. On August 8th, the University of Maryland Black Alumni Association will host a town hall event. And on August 19th, the University of Maryland Alumni Association will host an event called Teach Kids Money. This will be an interactive discussion with Mac Gardner from the class of 1998. Also, after this program, we will be sending out a short survey to our participants. So please feel free to send us any feedback that you may have that will help us to improve future events. Thank you, everyone, for attending. Godspeed, and go Terps.
Go Terps.